Welcome to week 1 of SC0X Supply Chain Analytics. This is the first of 5 courses in the MITSCAXX MicroMaster's credential in Supply Chain Management. The objective of this course is to equip you with all the tools, techniques, and methodologies you need to complete the rest of the 4 courses. Additionally, these are the same methodologies that you will use in your career in supply chain management. And so, as you go through this, you'll learn all of these techniques. Now, you might not see them in your job when you go out because they're embedded in your software, but it's very important for you to understand where they are and what's being done. So, what will you learn this week? First, we'll start off with introducing supply chain management, and we'll introduce the basic concept of the relationship between 2 entities or 2 firms, a customer, and you might have a supplier. And so the interaction between the customer and the supplier really can boil down to 3 main flows. You have some kind of information flow, where you place an order or you let someone that you know that you need something. Then you have the actual physical flow, and that goes from the supplier to the customer. And then finally, you hope you have a financial flow, right? And so this is the money that's going back to the supplier to pay for the goods that the customer got. Now, this might seem very straightforward, but this is widely used. This is the core of the interactions between customers. Now, you might have additional information flowing back and forth throughout that interaction. Now, this interaction with the 3 main flows is at the heart of supply chain management. Even if you have a very complex supply chain that might have multiple suppliers, and each of them have multiple suppliers, and they might supply different vendors as well. It gets very complicated. You have multiple tiers, and so it gets very complex, the relationships. It all still boils down to these 3 flows. So we'll focus in on that and so you understand that. The second lesson, we move into some of the analytics, and we start off with the building block of all mathematical analysis, and that is functions. We'll deal with mathematical functions because what we want to do here is take the concept and reality and transform that into a model that I can make a decision with. So we're going to start talking about functions, and if you remember back to previous classes, you'll remember that a function is simply just mapping inputs to an output. Y is a function of x. If I give you the x values, you can tell me the y. And we can think of this might be something like the cost of transportation might be a function of the distance that I have to go. And so we'll be using functions extensively throughout the course because that's the tool we use to map reality so we can make a decision in our models. Now, the key thing about functions is they take different forms, and we'll focus in a handful of the most common forms. The first one is known as a linear function. And a linear function is going to look something like this: y equals a times x plus b, where a and b are simply constants, and your variable is x in the horizontal axis, and y is my dependent variable, the output. So a linear function is going to look something like this, a line, thus the name. And you're going to have this value as the intercept, the b, and the a is the slope, the rise over the run. We'll be using linear functions a lot when we look at cost functions and things like that. Then you also have different functions called a quadratic. And a quadratic, it takes a slightly different form, that y equals a times x squared plus bx plus c. Again, it's where the a, b, and c are just constants. What does this look like? Well, it depends on the values of the a, the b, and the c, but they're really going to take 2 general forms. Either it's going to be an upside down u or an right side up u. And so we'll see this a lot when we look at profit functions or things that we want to maximize. Because what we'll try to do here is find where is the point where it's at a maximum or where it's at a minimum. Okay, so the next one we look at is known as an exponential function. And these are the things that you will learn. We don't expect you to learn it from this little introductory video. We want to make sure to introduce you to the things you're going to do. You'll learn this throughout the videos and the recitations that we run. And this is equal to y is a function of x, where it's equal to a times b raised to the x power. What does this look like? Well, we all know the term, if something grows exponentially, Well, that's the function that's describing it. We see it in physics, we see it in biology, you see it every day in compound interest rates at banks. So it's the same concept. The last one I want to talk about is something known as the power distribution. Sometimes it's called the power law. And it is equal to y equals a times x raised to the b. Slightly different from the exponential function. And so what does this look like? It really depends on the b value. So if the b is less than 0, if it's negative, then you're essentially saying it's a times a divided by x to the something, say to the 1 or to the 2, that's a negative b, then it's going to look like something like this. And this is kind of like diminishing cost. If I have a fixed cost and I have more units on it, it's describing that cost function. If b is greater than 1, it's going to look something like this. So you'll get familiar with all these different functions and when to use different ones. They have different properties. So you'll get very comfortable with these. Hopefully you'll understand how supply chains work, and that's what we'll be doing this week. So hope you enjoy the videos and the recitations. Do all the practice problems and the quick questions. They don't count to your grade, and they're there just to help you learn.